there's something quite strange about the way we live. From the moment we wake up, we're already managing, fixing, arranging our plans, our people, even our thoughts. We spend our lives trying to control things, as if life were some wild animal that needs to be tamed. But have you noticed the harder you try to control it, the more chaotic it becomes? It's like trying to smooth out ripples on water with your hands. The more you stir, the less still it gets. Alan Watts once said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." That's easy to hear, but almost impossible to live. Because everything in our culture tells us to do the opposite. To hustle harder, think positive, stay in control, fix ourselves. But here's the secret. Peace isn't something you control. It's something that appears when you stop trying. When you look closely, you realize this constant struggle to control life is really fear in disguise. We don't trust life to take care of itself. So we micromanage our emotions, we plan our happiness, we schedule our peace. And then we wonder why we feel exhausted, anxious, and restless. The truth is, life was never meant to be managed. It was meant to be observed. Like watching clouds drift across the sky. They form, they dissolve, they pass. Your thoughts are no different. They don't need your interference. They just need your awareness. Have you ever sat quietly and just watched your mind? At first it feels impossible. Thoughts rush in like cars on a busy street. But if you stay still, really still, something amazing happens. You begin to notice the space between thoughts. That space is peace. It's not something you create. It's what's left when you stop forcing. The problem is most of us think peace is an achievement, something to be earned, reached, or mastered. But peace is not a trophy. It's a presence. It's what's always been here, waiting beneath the noise of your effort. The moment you stop trying to hold everything together, you realize it was never falling apart. It was just moving, breathing, unfolding, exactly as it should. And maybe, just maybe, your only real task is not to control the river, but to trust its flow. The real struggle is not with the world outside, and it is the quiet war happening inside our own heads. Have you ever noticed how loud your mind can be when you're trying to relax? You sit down to meditate or just breathe for a moment and suddenly, 1,000 thoughts show up. Did I send that message? What if this goes wrong? Why can't I just stop thinking? It's funny, isn't it? The very effort to silence the mind becomes another form of noise. You try to force calmness, and in doing so you feed the chaos. Alan Watts once said, "The more we struggle for life, the more we are alive, and yet, the more we suffer." Our suffering doesn't come from the world, and it comes from our resistance to it. Your mind is like the ocean. Most of the time, you're tossed around by the surface waves, thoughts, worries, desires, memories. But deep down, the ocean is still. That depth has always been there. It's just that you rarely visit it, because you're too busy trying to control the waves. The truth is, you don't need to calm the storm. You only need to stop fighting the wind. Observation is not about fixing. It's about seeing. When you simply watch your thoughts without labeling them as good or bad, something begins to change. You start noticing patterns. The same fears that appear again and again. The same stories you tell yourself about who you are. And in that noticing, awareness grows. Awareness is like light. It doesn't fight the darkness, it just reveals it. Once you see clearly, control loses its meaning, because you realize the storm was never against you. It was teaching you how to let go. Think about how exhausting it is to fight your own mind every day, to constantly try to be positive, to think better, to stay in control. It's like holding your breath and calling it peace. Eventually you have to exhale. And that exhale, that moment of surrender, is where real peace begins. When you stop identifying with every thought, you stop being its prisoner. You become the watcher behind the storm, the sky that holds it all. The sky doesn't panic when clouds form. It knows they'll pass. And so will your thoughts, your fears, your emotions, all of it. The battle ends the moment you realize there's nothing to win. There's only awareness, like quietly watching, endlessly patient, completely free. There's a strange kind of power that appears when you stop trying to have power at all. It's not the kind that dominates or controls. It's the kind that watches, understands, and allows. Most people never discover this power because they were too busy trying to change what they feel instead of seeing it. We think awareness means effort, but it's actually the absence of it. To observe doesn't mean to control, it means to notice. When you truly watch your emotions, your mind, your reactions without interfering, you begin to sense a quiet distance between you and them. And in that distance, there's freedom. Imagine watching a storm through a window. The rain crashes, the thunder shakes the sky, but you remain untouched. You can see the storm, but you're not in it. That's the essence of awareness. Your thoughts and emotions are the weather. Your consciousness is the sky. Alan Watts often spoke about this, the art of letting things happen. He said, "You are a function of what the whole universe is doing, in the same way that a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing." When you realize that, something inside you softens. You stop trying to control the tide and instead you start flowing with it. Freedom without force feels like this. You stop chasing peace, and peace starts visiting you. You stop pretending to be calm, and calmness finds its way in naturally. Because what you resist persists, and what you observe transforms. The observer within you is timeless. It's the same awareness that was there when you were a child laughing for no reason. It's the same awareness that's there now, listening to these words. It never changes, only what it watches does. And when you rest in that awareness, you realize that no experience, good or bad, can touch who you truly are. Think about that for a moment. You've been through pain, joy, heartbreak, success, failure, and yet something in you has always stayed the same. That's not your mind. That's your awareness. That's the real you. Silent, infinite, observing all things without being moved. Once you taste this kind of freedom, you no longer need control. You see that life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be experienced. And the observer, quiet, awake and still, is the one who finally understands that truth. If you look closely at the moments in life that cause you the most pain, you'll find one thing at their root: control. Not the kind that organizes your day or pays the bills, but the kind that believes life must go your way for you to be okay. That's where suffering begins. You see, control is just fear wearing a confident mask. When we try to control our thoughts, our relationships, even our spiritual growth, we're saying, "I don't trust life. I don't trust myself." We try to hold everything together because we're terrified of what will happen if we let go. But the irony is, the tighter we hold, the more things slip through our fingers. Alan Watts once compared it to trying to hold water in your hands. If you clutch too tightly, it escapes. If you hold it gently, it stays. Life works exactly the same way. When you try to control the flow of life, it becomes stressful, exhausting, even painful. When you allow life to flow, it becomes graceful, effortless. Think about it. How many times have you tried to control how someone feels about you, only to end up frustrated? Or tried to control your emotions so you wouldn't appear weak, only to feel worse later? Control is the ego's favorite illusion. It gives us the sense that we were managing life when really life is managing us. The need to control creates constant resistance, and resistance is suffering in disguise. When you argue with what is, when you fight the present moment, you create friction inside yourself. You feel tense, anxious, drained. But the moment you stop fighting, something miraculous happens. Peace returns on its own. Watts said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." Let that sink in. Your mind doesn't need constant fixing. Your emotions don't need endless analysis. They only need your gentle attention, your willingness to let them be. True peace is not the absence of chaos, but the absence of control. It's the realization that life doesn't need your permission to unfold perfectly. Even your mistakes, your heartbreaks, your detours, they are part of a greater rhythm you don't yet see. When you stop controlling, you start trusting. And that's where freedom begins, and not in mastering life, but in letting life move through you as it always has. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about giving in. Not in the sense of defeat, but of deep trust. It is the quiet recognition that life knows how to live itself far better than you can plan it. Think about breathing. You don't control your breath. It happens. The moment you start trying to force it, holding it too long, taking it too quickly, it becomes uncomfortable. But when you simply allow it, your body breathes perfectly on its own. Letting go works the same way. Most of us have been taught that if we stop controlling, things will fall apart. But the truth is, things fall into place the moment we stop interfering. Letting go is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice of loosening the mind's grip on how life should be. You don't have to push the river. It's already flowing. Alan Watts used to say, "You are under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago." That's the essence of letting go. It's giving yourself permission to stop clinging to yesterday's identity, yesterday's plans, yesterday's fears. It's the courage to stand naked in this moment, unguarded and real. When you truly let go, life begins to feel lighter, not because problems disappear, but because you stop identifying with them. The storm still happens, but you're no longer the storm. You're the sky, vast, untouched, eternal. Try this. Next time you catch yourself worrying, don't fight it. Notice the tension in your body, the thought that says, "This must be fixed." Then ask yourself, what if I don't? What if you didn't try to control the outcome? What if you let things be unresolved for a while? You'll notice something subtle. Peace begins to emerge, not because the problem is gone, but because your resistance is. Letting go isn't passive. It's an active surrender, a wise cooperation with what is. It's dancing with life instead of wrestling it. And the more you practice, the more you realize, life was never against you. It was only your mind trying to outsmart the mystery that caused the struggle. When you stop grasping, you fall back into harmony. And that harmony feels like home, because it is home. You were never meant to control the flow of life. You were meant to move with it. Trusting life sounds simple, yet it's one of the hardest things we'll ever do. Because to trust means to stop fighting. It means accepting that we don't always know what's best. And that maybe, just maybe, the universe does. Alan Watts often compared life to music. You don't listen to a song just to get to the end. You enjoy the melody as it unfolds. Each note matters, even the pauses between them. But most of us treat life like a race to some invisible finish line. We rush through the verses, trying to get to the chorus. We don't trust the rhythm. Trust begins when you stop asking life to make sense on your timeline. It begins when you realize that every experience, and even the painful ones, is part of a larger harmony that you can yet hear in full. The moments of confusion, the detours, the heartbreaks, they are not mistakes. They are transitions, not endings. Think of the seasons. Winter never apologizes for being cold. It doesn't rush to become spring. It simply trusts that its role, stillness, silence, rest, is part of the greater balance of life. And when it's time, spring arrives without effort. The flowers don't struggle to bloom. They simply respond to warmth. In the same way, life moves through cycles of growth and stillness within you. There are times to act and times to wait, times to push forward, and times to step back. When you trust this natural flow, you stop living in constant resistance. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin to see, "This is happening for me." Trusting the flow doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop forcing. It means you start participating with life rather than trying to control it. You listen instead of demand. You respond instead of react. And the beauty is, the more you trust, the more life begins to reflect that trust back to you. Things start aligning without struggle. Opportunities appear when you stop chasing them. People leave or arrive exactly when they're meant to. You begin to live not by resistance but by rhythm. Because life isn't something happening to you, it's something happening as you. And when you finally see that, control becomes unnecessary. All that remains is participation, a graceful dance between you and existence itself. We often mistake surrender for weakness. We think that if we stop fighting, if we stop trying to control everything, we'll lose ourselves. But true surrender isn't about giving up. It's about waking up. It's the moment you realize you were never in control to begin with. Alan Watts once said, "The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless." When we cling to control, to certainty, to how we believe things should be, we strangle the very life out of our experience. Surrender is the opposite. It's saying yes to the flow. It's releasing your white-knuckled grip on reality and discovering that you don't fall. You float. There's an ancient Taoist image that captures this beautifully. It's the image of a man drifting down a river. He doesn't fight the current. He doesn't thrash or panic when the water quickens. He simply moves with it, trusting that the river knows where it's going. And even when the rapids roar or the rocks appear, he remains fluid, adaptable, alive. That's the essence of surrender. It's not passivity, it's deep participation. It's not resignation, it's confidence in the intelligence of life itself. Because when you stop trying to force outcomes, you start to see outcomes as they really are, not as you wish them to be. When you surrender, your suffering softens. You stop carrying the heavy burden of how things must turn out. You stop negotiating with reality, and in that release you find freedom. The kind that no achievement, no possession, no control could ever give you. Notice how nature surrenders without effort. The tree doesn't cling to its leaves when autumn arrives. The ocean doesn't resist the tide. The clouds don't hold their shape. They let go, transform, and in doing so, remain part of the great movement of life. You, too, are part of that movement. And when you finally stop insisting that life obey your will, you discover something extraordinary. Life was never against you. It was only waiting for you to stop fighting long enough to join it. Surrender is not the end of effort. It's the beginning of ease. It's the art of dancing with the unknown, of trusting the mystery even when you cannot see the next step. And that's where real peace begins. When you finally stop fighting the flow, something remarkable begins to happen. Stillness returns. Not the stillness of a frozen lake, stiff and lifeless, but the living stillness that breathes beneath everything. It's the quiet hum behind the noise, the space in which all movement occurs. That stillness is who you truly are. Alan Watts often reminded us that you are the universe experiencing itself. And when you rest in stillness, you start to feel that truth. You realize that peace was never something to be earned or achieved. It was what remained when the struggle ended. It's always been there, waiting beneath the noise of your thoughts, beneath your stories of control and resistance. In that stillness, you see clearly. You see that every wave of emotion, every storm of circumstance, every rise and fall in life is just movement within the ocean of your being. The waves may seem wild, but the ocean is never disturbed. You are that ocean. You always have been. Observe life the way you'd watch clouds drift across the sky, constantly changing, never the same, yet never separate from the sky itself. You don't have to hold on to any cloud, nor fear the storm. Because beneath it all, the sky remains untouched, vast, silent, infinite. That's your true nature. When you live from that awareness, everything changes. You still work, love, dream, and feel, but you no longer drown in what happens. You participate without clinging. You care without control. You love without fear. You move through the world lightly, like a leaf carried by the wind, free, effortless, alive. And this is the real secret to inner peace. You stop trying to fix the waves, and you remember you are the sea. You stop chasing perfection, and you realize that life as it is right now is already whole. So, observe. Don't control. Let life move the way it must, and trust the intelligence that guides the stars to also guide you. The peace you seek isn't somewhere else. It's right here behind the noise, beneath the movement, within the stillness that never left. Because when you stop trying to control life, you finally begin to live it.